To the young woman of Malolos, London, February 22, 1889. When I wrote No Limit ang Hire, I asked myself whether bravery was a common thing in the young women of our people. I brought back to my recollection and have reviewed those I had known since my infancy. But there were only few who seemed to come up to my ideal. There was, it is true, an abundance of girls with agreeable manners, beautiful ways, and modest demeanor. But there was in all an admixture of servitude and deference to the words or whims of their so-called spiritual father. Spiritual father, as if the spirit or the soul had any father or other than God, due to excessive kindness, modesty, or perhaps ignorance. They seem faded plants sown and reared in darkness, having flowers without perfume and fruits without sap. This famous letters was written by Jose Rizal in Tagalog while he was residing in London, upon the request of Marcelo H. del Pilar. The story behind this letter is this. On December 12, 1888, a group of 20 young people of Malolos petitioned Governor General Weyler for permission to open a night school so that they might study Spanish under Teodoro Sandico, the Spanish parish priest. Father Felipe Garcia objected, so that the Governor General turned down the petition. However, the young women, in the defiance of the fear wrath, bravely continued their agitations of the school. A thing unheard of in the Philippines in those times. They finally succeed in obtaining the government approval to their project on conditions that Señorita Guadalupe Reyes should be their teacher. The incident caused a great stir in the Philippines and far away Spain. Del Pilar, writing in Barcelona on February 17, 1889, requested Rizal to send a letter in Tagalog to the brave women of Malolos. Accordingly, Rizal, although busy in London annotating Morga's book, penned this famous letter and sent it to Del Pilar on February 22, 1889 for transmittal to Malolos. For full text of this letter in original Tagalog and in English and Spanish translations, see A Letter to the Young Women of Malolos by Jose Rizal, edited by Teodoro M. Calao and published by the National Library, Manila on 1932. However, when the news of what happened to Malolos reached us, I saw my error, and great was my rejoicing. After all, who is to blame me? I did not know Malolos nor its young women, except one called Emilia Tiangson, whom Rizal met in 1887, and her I knew by name only. Now, you have responded to our first appeal in the interest of welfare of the Filipino. Now that you have set an example to those who, like you, long to have their eyes opened and be delivered from servitude, new hopes are awakened in us, and we now even dare to face adversity, because we have you for our allies and are confident of victory. No longer does Filipina stand with her in bowed, nor does she spend her time on her knees, because she is quickened by hope in the future. No longer will be mother contribute to keeping her daughter in darkness and bringing her up in contempt, in moral annihilation, and no longer will be the science of all sciences consist in blind submissions to any unjust order, or an extreme complacency, nor will a courteousness smile beneath the only weapon against insult or humble tears and ineffable panacea for all tribulations. You know that the will of God is different from that one priest, that religiousness does not consist of long periods spent on your knees, nor in endless prayers, big rosaries, and grimly scapularies, but in a spotless conduct, fair attention, and upright judgment. You also know that the prudence does not consist in blindly obeying any whim of the little thin God, but in obeying only that which is reasonable and just, because blind obedience is itself the cause and origins of those whims, and those guilt of it are really to be blamed. The official or the friar can no longer assert that they alone are responsible for their unjust order, because God gave each individual's reasons of will of his or her own to distinguish just from the unjust. All were born without shackles and free, and nobody has a right to subjugate the will and the spirit of the other. And why should you submit the other your thoughts, seeing that thought is noble and free? It is cowardness and erroneous to believe that saintless consists in blind obedience, and that prudence and the habit of thinking are presumptuous. Ignorance ever been ignorance, and never prudence and honor God. The primal source of wisdom does not demand that man, created in his image and likeness, allow himself to deceive and hoodwink, but want us to use and let shine the light of reason, with which he has no merciful endowed us. He may be compared to the father who gave each of his sons a torch to light their way in darkness, bidding them to keep its light bright and take care of it, and not to put it out and trust to the light of the others, but to help and advise each other to find the right path. They would be madmen were they to follow the light of another, only to come to a fall, and the Father could unbrave them and say to them, "Did I not give each of his own torch?" But he could not say so if the fall were due to the light of the torch of him who fell, as the light might have been dim and the road very bad. The deceiver is fond of using the saying that it is presumptuous to rely on one's own judgment, but in my opinion, it is more presumptuous for a person to put his judgment above that one of the others is tried to make it prevail of theirs. It is more presumptuous for a man to constitute himself into an idol and pretend to be in communication of thou with God. It is more than presumptuous, even blasphemous, for a person to attribute every moment of his lips to God, to present every whim of his as the will of God, and to the brand of his own enemy as an enemy of God. Of course, we should not consult of our own judgment alone, but hear the opinion of others, doing what may seem to be reasonable to us. The wild men from the hills, if the clad in the priest's robe, remains hillman and can only deceive, weak, and ignorant. And to make my argument more conclusive, just by a priest's robe, as the Franciscans wear it put in a carabao. You will be lucky if carabao does not become lazy on account of the robe. But we'll leave the subject to speak of something else. Youth is a flower bed that is to bear rich fruit and must accumulate wealth for its descendants. What of aspiring will be that of a woman whom kindness of character is expressed by mumbled prayers, who knows nothing by heart but a wits, novenas, and the allegedly miracles, whose amusement consists in playing pigwengi or in the frequent confessions of the same sins. What sons will she have by acolytes, priest servants, or cockfighters? It is the mother who are responsible for the present servitude of our compatriots, owing to the unlimited fruitfulness of their loving hearts, to their ardor to desire to elevate their sons. Maturity is the fruit of infancy, and the infant is formed on the lap of its mother. The mother, who can only teach her child how to kneel and kiss hands, must not expect sons with blood other than the vile slaves. A tree that grows in the mud is unsubstantial and good only for firewoods. If her son should have bold mind, his boldness will be deceitful and will be like the bud that cannot show itself until the ringing of vespers. They say that prudence is sanctity, but what sanctity have they shown us to pray and kneel a lot, kiss the hands of the priest, throw money away on the church, and believe all the friars is to fit to us, gossip, callous rubbings of noses. As to the mites and gifts to God, is there anything in the world does not belong to God? What would you say of a servant making his master a present of a cloth borrowed from the very master? Who is a vain, so insane that he will give alms to the God and believe that miserable thing he has given will serve to the cloth, the creator of all things. Blessed be those who succor their fellow men, aid the poor, feed the hungry, in course by those who turn the dead ear to supplications of the poor, who only give him who has plenty splendid their money lavishly on silver altar, hangings for thanksgiving, or in serenades and fireworks. The bonny ground out of the poor is bequeathed to the master so that he can provide for chain on subjugate and hire thugs and extortioners. Oh, what a blindness! What lack of understanding! Saintless, consistent in the first place in obeying the dictates of reason, happening what may it is act, not the words that I want you said. Said Christ, not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but not that doeth the will of my Father which is heaven. Saintless does not consist in objectiveness, nor it is the successor of Christ to be recognized by the fact that he gives his hands to be kissed. Christ did not give the kiss of peace to the princes and never gave his hands to be kissed. He did not cater to the rich and vain. He did not mention scapularies, nor did he make rosaries, or solicit offerings for the sacrifice of the Mass or exact payment for his prayers. Saint John did not demand fee on the river Jordan, nor did not Christ teach for gain. Why then Do the friars now refuse to stir a foot unless paid in advance? And, as they were starving, they sell scapularies, rosaries, beads, and other things which are nothing but schemes for making money and detriment to the soul. Because even if all the rugs on earth were converted into scapularies, and all the trees in the forest into rosaries, and if the skins of all the beasts were made into belts, and if all the priests on the earth mumbled prayers over all this and sprinkled oceans of holy water over, this would not purity erode or condone sin where there is no repentance. Thus, also, through cupidity and love of money, they will, for a price, revoke the numerous prohibitions such as those against eating meat, marrying close relatives, and etc. You can do almost anything if you but grease their palms. What that? Can God be bribed and bought off and blinded by money? Nothing more nor less than a friar. The brigand who has obtained a ball of comprise can live calmly on the proceeds of his robbery, because he will be forgiven. God then will sit at a table where theft provides the viands. Has the omnipotent become a pauper? Then he must assume that the role of the exciseman or gendarme. If that is the God whom the friar adores, then I turn my back upon that God. Let us be reasonable and open our eyes, especially you women, because you are the first to influence the consciousness of man. Remember that a good mother does not resemble the mother that the friar has created. They must bring up her child to be the image of true God, not of a blackmailing, a grasping God, but of a God who is the Father of us all, who is just, who does not suck the love of blood of the poor like vampire, nor scoff at the agony of the sorrel beset, nor makes a crooked path of the path of justice. Awaken and prepare the will of our children towards all that is honorable, judge by proper standards, to all that sincere and firm of purpose, clear judgment, clear procedure, honesty in act and deeds, love for the fellow man, and respect for God. It is what you must teach your children, and seeing that life is full of thorns and thistles, you must fortify their minds against any stroke of adversity and accustoms them to danger. The people cannot expect honor nor prosperity so long as they will educate their children in a wrong way. So long as the woman who guides the child and his steps is lavish and ignorant. No good water comes from a turbid, bitter spring, no savory fruits come from acrid seed. The duties that woman has to perform in order to deliver the people from suffering are of no little importance, but they say as they may, they will not be beyond the strength and stamina of the Filipino people. The power and good judgment well known. It is because of the women of the Philippines are of this that she has been hoodwinked, entitled, and rendered pusillanimous, and now her enslavers rest at ease, because so long as they can give the Filipina mother a slave, so as long they will be able to make slaves of her children. The cause of backwardness of Asia lies in the fact that there were women are ignorant, are slaves, while Europe and America are powerful because there are women and free and well-educated endowed with lucid intellect and strong will.